Hello and welcome to the Be Glad movement. My name's Pollyanna and I'm on a mission to bring you as many stories as possible of good coming out of bad and reasons to be glad. And today I'm joined by Lisa, and Lisa's story revolves around her experiences of having a premature baby and having to spend some time in a neonatal ward. So without further ado, Lisa, say hi.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time. Why don't you just dive straight in and tell us about your story and what happened to you?
Okay, yeah. So in early 2016, I found out I was pregnant, and me and my husband were really, really excited, as you are when you find out that you're having a baby. Um, and I went and had all my tests and my scans, and they said I had something called PAP-A, which is a protein deficiency in the placenta. So they just said to me that towards the last 10 weeks of your pregnancy, we're going to keep a really close eye on you and just make sure that baby's growing as it should do.
Right.
So then I turned up for my 30-week scan. Typically, we couldn't find parking. So we were going round and round the car park. We turned up half an hour early because we always like to be early. No parking whatsoever, absolute nightmare.
Oh no.
So my husband said, you go in, you jump out here, and I'll keep trying to find a car parking space. So that's what he did. So I jumped out, and he went and drove around the hospital, carried on trying to find a parking space, and he couldn't find one at all. So I went into the appointment and I just said to the sonographer that my husband's driving around, he's trying to find a space. It's really busy today in the car park. He just cannot find anywhere. She went, don't worry about it. I said, I'm just going to text him the room number so he knows where to come.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I did. Text him. And she said, well, we'll start the scan. So she started doing the scan, and I was really desperate for a wee because you have to go and drink all this water beforehand.
Yeah.
Ones, they dig it right in, and my son was sat so low as well in my tummy, so it was completely over my bladder that this wand was digging in.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, she said, just ring your husband and see whether he got a parking space. So I was like, okay. And she said, I'm just going to, she said, in actual fact, tell him to park in the 10-minute bay right in front of the doors, the drop-off point, and I'll just go and tell security that that's what I've told him to do. And she
Right.
left the room and didn't stay for the phone call. So I rang up my husband, and he was like, there's just no parking anywhere. I said, well, the sonographer's told you to park in the 10-minute bay, and she's just gone out to tell security. And he was like, just get us a picture, it'll be fine. I won't park there because other people might need it, because it was the drop-off point for when women are in labour, so the partners can drop them off quickly.
Right.
And I said, well, she's left the room, she's gone to tell security. So he did as she said, and he parked up and he walked in the room and he sat down, and she said, there's something wrong with your baby.
Oh.
And she got the wand back out and she put some more jelly on my tummy, and she said, there's build-up of fluid here on his tummy. His tummy shouldn't be that big. And she said his heart rate's also very, very high.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, when I went to speak to security, I just made the doctors aware. She said, I'm just going to pop you in a waiting room and I'll be back in a minute and let you know what the doctors have consulted and what they've said.
Right.
So,
Scary stuff for you.
yeah, because we were just hit with it. There was nothing wrong in my pregnancy apart from being told that I had this PAP-A. So
Right.
I didn't notice any difference in the movement. The only thing I had sort of the day before was because he was sat so low, he was putting a lot of pressure on my hips and my spine.
Right.
And sort of a couple of days before, I noticed that pain was getting a little bit worse. I was
Mm.
told to expect that because he
Okay.
was so low. So I didn't really think anything of it. But yeah, so she came back into the room that we were in. I was in tears because it was like it was all happening so quickly. And she said, they want you up in theatre now. Um,
Crikey.
so I was rushed upstairs, and we got into the lift, and my husband sort of gave me a big hug. And later I found out that the sonographer had been crying, and that's why he was sort of like trying to block my view of her.
Oh my goodness.
Got herself upset as well. So we turned up in the room, and the nurses were sort of, right, you need to strip, catheters going in, we need to get a magnesium drip into you, we need to get steroids into you. This was anything's better than nothing for baby at the moment. So the magnesium was to help with brain development, and the steroids for his lungs. Because he was born premature, they knew he was going to have problems with that. So we then, I had to take off my jewellery, got this gown on, they wanted bloods, they wanted blood pressure. And then it was 20 questions from the nurses. What have you eaten? What have you drank? What have you done today? What, are you allergic to anything?
Right, gosh.
The registrar came in, she asked the same questions, then the doctor came in, asked the same questions,
Oh my goodness.
and asked the same questions. So once I'd gone through all the questions, I was all prepped and ready for theatre. They whisked me in there, and they took my husband to one side, and he had to get gowned up and made sure he was washed his hands and stuff. And I said to him, we're not sure your baby's going to make delivery, but we've not told you that. You just need to go in, you need to support your wife.
Yeah.
So he came in a bit teary-eyed, I'd say.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, but he came in, he did an amazing job. He sat with me, held my hand, and was talking to me. And the only conversation I remember having, we just had general chit chat. So it was all completely irrelevant. It was just to keep my mind off of what was happening the other side of it, really. And the only conversation I remember from that day is we'd organised my baby shower for the next week. And I was like, I've got to cancel. Nobody can come.
Oh.
I can't just had a baby and then have a baby shower.
Right.
So it was all about, you need to ring such and such a body, and all our friends and family and my work colleagues, you need to let them all know. And that's the only conversation I remember, really. But then, so my son, he's called Neil. So Neil was born, and he didn't make a sound. And the team that were in the theatre was so well oiled that they didn't need to talk to each other. So we didn't have a clue as to what was going on.
Yeah.
But my husband's not squeamish, so I was like, can you look the other side of the curtain and tell me what's happening? So he had a look round, and he was like, well, they've got him out and they're around him. He said, I can't see anything. So yeah, then they sort of said, right, we're going to start stitching you up. This will take about 20 minutes. And then the doctors and nurses with my son sort of said, right, we've got him in an incubator. You can't hold him, but you can have a good look at him before we've got to then take him up to the neonatal unit.
Right.
So I got to see him for about a minute.
Gosh.
And because he had so much fluid on him, he should have been a 2-pound baby, and he was 4 pounds and 15 ounces. So he had pretty much 3 pounds of fluid on him.
Oh my goodness.
So because of this, though, he looked like a plump, healthy newborn. Small, but he still looked like just a newborn baby.
Right.
So he didn't look poorly at all, and he was trying to open his eyes and things, and he just looked like a baby, just perfect, and I was absolutely in love from the moment I saw him.
Oh, I'm sure you were.
Yeah.
Was that quite reassuring to see him looking healthy at that point in time?
Yeah, it was. I didn't realise at the time quite how poorly he was, because they hadn't told us how poorly he was. They just sort of said that there was a couple of issues, and the best thing for him was to get him out.
Right.
So later on we learned that they didn't think he was going to survive delivery, so they should have transported me to another hospital, but they didn't think he was going to make it that far, so they weren't fully equipped to deal with his health issues.
Right.
So it turns out that he had something called hydrops, which was the build of fluid, and he had something called SVT, and the full name of that is supraventricular tachycardia. which meant that his heart was racing too quickly. So
Right.
his heart was beating at 320 beats per minute when he was born.
Crikey.
Way, way, way too fast.
Goodness.
So then I was taken off to recovery. He was born at 3:32 in the afternoon, and my husband and my mum were allowed to go and see him at 8:10 in the evening. So I was quick, get my phone, I want lots of pictures, I want to
Yeah.
see him. Like, I wasn't allowed to go and see him at that point. So, because I was bedbound and he wasn't stable enough, so if they needed to get to him quickly, the only way I could see him that night was if they wheeled me up in the bed.
Right.
So they said, you can't go at the moment.
That must have been heartbreaking for you.
It was, but it was reassuring that my dad and my mum, his dad and my mum got to go and see him.
Yeah.
That was good. And I did. They managed to sneak me up later. So
Oh,
I
well
got.
done.
Yeah, he was stable for a little while later on, so they snuck me up at 10:30 at night.
Oh,
So I
good.
got to
Good.
spend about 15 minutes with him.
Oh.
So yeah, then that was the start of our neonatal journey, really. So we were on the neonatal unit for 73 days in total.
73.
Yeah, 73.
Wow.
So we were actually on 2 neonatal units. He got transferred when he was 4 weeks old. His heart had been in SVT for a full 24 hours, and he'd only had a 25-second break all that 24 hours.
Crikey.
So they said, if his heart carries on like this, we're worried that it's going to be heart failure for him.
Sure.
So they set up the transfer to go to Alderhay. But then en route his bed got taken, so he got diverted to Liverpool Women's Hospital, and the Alderhay doctors, they go between the 2 hospitals.
Right.
The Alderhay doctors came over and saw Neil. Within a few hours of him getting there, they tweaked his medication a little bit, and from, I think it was the 12th of December 2016 all the way through to October the 3rd, 2017, he didn't have a single SVT episode. Just from those doctors tweaking that medication. It was amazing.
Wow, that's quite something, isn't it? Oh my goodness. So, yeah, it's amazing how something so small can make such a massive difference.
Yeah, and the staff at the hospital there as well, they were more used to seeing those sorts of conditions, so they weren't as scared of him as what the staff at the other hospital were.
Sure.
So when he ripped out his breathing tube at the other hospital, it was all hands on deck, got to get this tube back in. And they were like, let's see what he does for half an hour. He's a strong baby. He's proving us all wrong at the moment. Let's see if he can do it.
Oh, crikey. Yeah.
They were always on hand. They monitored him the whole time, but they were like, let's just see what he can do. And he came on leaps and bounds being there. And within 2 weeks, they were able to transfer him back to the hospital, the Preston hospital that we were at, just in time for Christmas. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So then, from then on, it was just a case of getting his high drops under control, which they did with medication. There was so much debate between the doctors as to whether they should tap him, which meant putting a needle in and to drain the fluids. But the worry was that it would come back. So the doctors were so divided. They always had to have a vote on what course of treatment, and it was always 3-2 on this vote. So they rope in the other doctors, and they'd all be like, what do we still think needs to be done with the high drops? So he never he managed to fight that by himself with some medication that they were putting him on. So yeah, he managed to overcome that by himself, really.
Gosh, how did that make you feel, knowing that it was down to a vote between the doctors? I suppose having more medical minds thinking about the problem and deciding. Yeah, I guess that's. How did you feel about it?
I think the whole process, we were reliant on the doctors. We just knew nothing about heart condition. We knew nothing about high drops. And to start with, They advised us not to research anything because
Right.
obviously Google can scare
Yeah.
the bejesus out of you, really.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But then when we did Google it, hydrops was so scary to Google. Basically, the survival rate is hardly anything. It's so low. It's not a common condition, and adults that have had it have just said that they would not wish it on their worst enemy. It is just so painful and really not nice.
Right.
So I think, going back to your original question though, we just relied on the doctors so heavily to know what they were doing, and
Sure.
that they've got that education that we don't have.
Yeah.
And for some things, they consult with us and say, what do you want us to do? These are the options. So it wasn't that we weren't a part of his team. It was just that we're not medically trained. So we can play doctor all we want, but it
Yeah.
wasn't going to get him better. The professionals were there to do that.
Sure. Sure. Gosh, so you had your 72 day. Was it 72 days in a neonatal ward, and then you were allowed to come home?
Yes, so we got home and we were told that we were going to have this big support network still there. So we had access to the doctors still on the neonatal unit. The neonatal nurses, they have a outreach team. So they would come to see us every 2 days. And we also had open access, which we still have, to the children's ward at the hospital. So if ever we were worried, we could literally just give them a ring and say, I'm really worried about him, say what it is, and then take him down to the unit straight away.
Fantastic.
So yeah, it was good. And once the outreach team of the neonatal nurses were finished, they were handing over to a community team. And Neil still has a community nurse that sees him. And she's amazing. She's always on the end of the phone. She'll ring me back with if I've got any worries, etc. So the team are incredible. However, those first couple of days home were sort of like, I've not got a nurse or doctor constantly there watching me and listening to me and
Yeah.
checking that I'm doing things right. And so yeah, you did feel like you were a little bit on your own. And then we got to day 4, and Neil had been a bit fussy in the morning, so I'd given him his bottles and things, and my husband had got up and he was sort of like, I'll take over, I'll do the lunchtime bottle. I'll make you a cup of tea, I'll do the lunchtime bottle, you have your cup of tea and go and have your shower, because I was still in my pyjamas, which is unheard of for me. Never in my pyjamas past dinner time. Normally that's sort of like 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm up, washed, dressed and ready to go. And yeah, so I just finished my cup of tea. My husband had just given my son his bottle, and he looked at me and he said, something's not right. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, he's just sleeping, he's just had a bottle. And he's like, Lisa, he's stopped breathing. I was like, no, he's not stopped breathing. And then suddenly he turned blue.
Oh my goodness.
He's definitely not breathing. He's turning blue. So
Wow.
my husband is a police officer, so his job, he has to do first aid training on a regular basis, which is so good.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that. And
Sure.
the hospital had trained me before I'd left. One of the terms of the discharge is that you have to have CPR training and choking training for premature babies. So so my husband rushed to the table where we had our son's changing mat, because you need a firm surface, and he started doing CPR on him, and I rang 999. So I was then on the phone to the 999 operator and talking to them, telling them what had happened, giving our address, and then they started taking over the counting once they'd got the ambulance en route, so you didn't lose count of the counting.
Right.
The number of breaths and the number of chest compressions.
Gosh, that must have been incredibly scary for you.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Mm.
It's, you just don't expect it, and just coming home, you think you've reached this point, this
Mm.
milestone where he must be all right to come home. Like, we knew, they said about risks of him coming back with breathing difficulties and things like that, but you didn't expect just to stop breathing.
Yeah,
So yeah, massive shock. So yeah, then the ambulance turned up, and I heard them down the bottom of the street. So I went out the front door to flag them down so they didn't have to look at the house numbers.
sure.
Um, and then, yeah, they turned up and they took over straight away. But just literally as they turned the corner to come onto our street, my husband had got us on the background, so he'd
Oh,
whimpered. So yes, so as soon as they walked through the door, it was like, right, he's obviously responsive now. They hooked him up to the machines to check his heart rate and his oxygen saturation levels and took his temperature and things. So his heart rate was good. That was what it should have been. His oxygen saturation levels were far too low, so we needed oxygen.
mm.
And his temperature had dropped down to 33 degrees. So a baby's temperature should be between 36.5 and 37.5 degrees, really. So yeah, his temperature had dropped quite massively. So it was a case of getting him warmed up, getting him on the oxygen, and getting him back to hospital.
Sure.
Then we had another ambulance turn up. So we had another 2 paramedics in the house, and then another a first responder car came as well. So in the end, we had 5 paramedics, 2 ambulances, and a first responder car outside our house.
Fantastic. That's reassuring though, isn't it? When you need them.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah. I can say that wholeheartedly about the NHS. When we've needed them, they have been there, and in an emergency, they have been absolutely amazing. And without them, my son would not be here today.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for them, for everything that they've
They do absolutely fantastic work. Yeah,
done. They
totally.
do. Yeah. So yeah, so then we were blue lighted back to the hospital, where he spent the next week. So for the next week, I was inside the same room with the same 4 walls.
Oh,
um, but he got better, got bigger, got stronger, and after that, we were able to come home. So
fantastic.
since then, he's been getting bigger and stronger. We have had a lot of hospital admissions still, and a lot of checkups, but we've
Mm.
still got a big support network, which is amazing. Um, and yeah, he's going from strength to strength.
How old is Neil now?
He's 20 months now.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a fun time, isn't it, when they're that
It
age?
is, yeah. Last week he started taking his first steps. So at
Oh,
the moment he's just wanting to walk everywhere.
fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, tell me, because I also know that through this experience, you came up with a business idea. Do you want to tell us just a bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So because of this, I came up with the business idea and a Presents for Preemies. So when we were in hospital, family and friends just, they weren't really sure what to get us. They weren't really sure how to react to us and what to say, what to do. The gifts that they bought us, we had so many amazing, amazing gifts. Um, and the clothes were too big,
Right.
products too harsh for premature babies, and vouchers, we didn't want to go out and spend them.
Mm,
We didn't want to wait in for deliveries either when we were at the hospital. So
sure.
I never got to sort of experience having that gift that other parents maybe got and being really excited to go away and use it straight away.
Sure.
So um, when he came home, I had absolutely loads of clothes for him, loads of gifts that I could use for him. But whilst we were at the hospital, we didn't really have that much. Um,
Mm,
so yeah, Presents for Preemies came about because there are things that you need and things that you can do with a premature baby, and gifts that you can buy that are maybe slightly more appropriate.
Right.
I just thought if I could set something up that would help other premature parents and their babies, and give them something that can just bring even a little smile to their face when they're going through something like that, it'd be
Yeah.
worth doing. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing. So, and then
Fantastic.
I've got my Facebook page and my Instagram page, and I give sort of hints and tips for friends and family as well, as to how they can help. And lots of things are things that you could do with any baby, any newborn baby.
Right.
But it's things like helping mum get to the hospital, in the early days, maybe batch cooking and giving them something that they can stick in the freezer and just heat up when they come back from hospital, so they don't have to think about things like that. If they've
Yeah.
got pets, maybe a dog, you could take them for a walk for them, or other, if they've got other children, other siblings, maybe you could look after them for a few hours.
Mm.
They can either catch up on a bit of sleep or just get down to the hospital without having to worry about childcare for other children and things. So
That,
yeah, I just talk about other things that are helpful and useful as well.
yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I think when the new baby comes along, everybody's so focused on this little person, but actually the cleaning still needs doing, the cooking, and everybody wants to have a cuddle, or obviously they can't when it's a premature baby, but any other baby, they come over to visit when actually you just want them to go and do some housework and help you out in that respect. So those
Yeah,
kind of tips to
it's
keep it front,
understanding the need. Sorry.
just to keep it front of mind. I was saying, yeah, sorry, you were going to say.
Yeah, it's just understanding the neonatal world as well. So it's a
Mm,
completely different world that not many people know about, and unless you've been there, you wouldn't know about it, which is perfectly understandable. But
yeah.
it is a world on its own. So it's like the strict rules of wash your hands and sanitize them before you
Mm,
touch baby and things like that. They don't necessarily understand. It's like, oh, because normally you're told, children need to build up their immune system. It's like, no, premature babies do not need to build up their immune system yet.
yeah, not yet. No,
um,
bless them.
it's bringing awareness around those sorts of things as well.
Sure.
And like we weren't allowed to touch Neil for the first 5 days, so no contact whatsoever. We could only look at him, and I only
Mm.
got my first cuddle when he was 18 days old. So it's things
Oh,
I take for granted. But people who haven't been in that situation, they don't understand that, and
mm,
they think that, oh, your baby's being looked after, but surely you can do all the things that other people do with their newborns. It's like, no, actually, getting him out of an incubator required 3 nurses, because they had to move all the tubes, the wires, they had to pick him up, they had to make sure that he's stable and that his monitor was reading good numbers before they could get him out. Then they had to breathe for him as well to start with. So
right.
because they had to hook him from the machine that breathed for him, so they would
Yeah,
unhook him in the incubator, breathe for him, and then they would put him on me for cuddles, or my husband, whilst breathing for him, and then rehook him back up. So yeah, it's a completely different world that people just don't know about, really.
yeah. Well, it sounds like your business idea is fantastic. Presents for
Yeah.
Preemies. That's what you've called it. And
Yeah.
what your Instagram handle and Facebook handle?
So you can find me at Presents For Preemies, on Facebook,
Mm.
uh, and Instagram is presents-for-preemies.
Okay, I'll
Um,
share the links anyway. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And my website is www.presentsforpreemies.co.uk.
Okay, fantastic. Because I think there's, like you say, there's lots of people out there that don't know how to react and how to respond, and what presents to give. So and also your Instagram page giving advice on how to help a family going through what you went through, would just be so invaluable. So I'll definitely share all the links for that. And yeah, your sounds so exciting. So I'm wishing you all the very best of luck with that. I'm sure it'll be really successful, because it's certainly a unique niche, isn't it, in the market? So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's 95,000 babies in the UK that need the neonatal unit. and 65,000 of those are born premature. So that's every year. There's 15 million babies worldwide that are born premature. So although it's very niche, the numbers surprise quite a few people, I think.
Yeah, yeah. They are surprising numbers, actually. I never would have known that. Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Lisa, and sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And I know that other people that are going through the same thing will find some comfort in your story. Because I do really believe that everyone's story is important, because it can help other people. So yeah, thank you for joining us. If you like this video, please do hit the subscribe button so you get notifications when new videos come along. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. If you search at Be Glad Movement, you should be able to find us. And I look forward to seeing you in another episode. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. Take care.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.